Cindy Gillespie is the director of the Arkansas Department of Human Services. We're glad to have her back on the program. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. Enjoy being here every time.
All right. The Department of Human Services, the Arkansas Insurance Department, the Department of Workforce Services announced this week that they are going to do a healthcare landscape study between now and the end of the year, really kind of look at a point in time of where the health insurance and healthcare markets are in Arkansas. Couldn't everything kind of be in limbo in the course of doing this study? I mean, how certain do you think things are in the insurance market?
If we don't, I think there's a lot of change going on, obviously, in the market. But part of what we're dealing with, Roby, is the state has not done a look at what we actually look like, who's insured, who's not, what kind of insurance, what does it cost, who offers insurance, who doesn't. We haven't looked at that since before the Affordable Care Act. So it's time. There's been 4 years now of change, of more people being insured, change in products, changes in Medicaid. We need to see what we look like today. Without that baseline, we can't really look at options for how to make all of our insurance products more affordable, how to make Medicaid more sustainable. We need a baseline.
All right, so I want to run through a couple of scenarios that have been playing out, because you mentioned we've been going through a period of change here, and we absolutely have. President Trump wants to cut insurance premium subsidies. Arkansas Works still waiting for its waiver. There are conversations about bipartisan fixes to the Affordable Care Act, partisan fixes to the Affordable Care Act. You got the CHIP program and community health centers that their funding is up in the air right now. I say that healthcare reform is a dumpster fire now. What is your description of where we're at with healthcare reform?
What we're doing with healthcare reform at DHS is we are simply trying to focus on the Arkansas program and how to keep the Arkansas program strong.
Right.
And how to find our path through whatever is coming out of Washington.
This is all coming out from the federal level.
It's all coming from
certainly.
The federal level. And for us, what we're focused on is how to create our own path and make it continue to work for Arkansans. And I think all those areas, we are finding our way through that. The subsidies got pulled out, but the insurers filed again this week, as you saw, and it does not change what we're doing with Arkansas Works. So,
explain to me why those premium subsidy changes aren't going to affect everything. I know the governor has expressed his confidence that we will be unaffected by that. Math tells me that we will be affected by that.
Okay, Arkansas Works won't be affected by that. So what's happening is, if you think about the market, maybe a quarter of the market is losing not the premium subsidies, but they're losing subsidies on that are there for their cost sharing, their deductibles and copays, right? So that money instead for that quarter is being blended into the premium payments. So the federal government for those folks will still be subsidizing the premiums. And they'll subsidize those premiums all the way, they'll subsidize those premiums now at a greater number. Simple explanation. On that side of the market, the way it works is if the individual's paying $20 a month for a $500 premium, they're going to pay $20 a month for a $570 premium.
Gotcha.
The feds are still going to pick up all the cost. It's just now going to come through the premium tax.
And it does look like there may be a solution working its way through with the Alexander Murray bill that would maybe restore those premium subsidies for at least a short term, a 2-year period or something like that. Let's talk about Arkansas Works. You're still waiting on this waiver from the feds on this. You're not the only state that's waiting on some action from the feds.
Exactly.
You've had a lot of dialogue with the feds. What do you think is holding up the waiver process here? Do we have holdovers from the Obama administration holding this up? Does the law not allow us to do what we want to do? What's your explanation?
The law allows us to do what we want to do. I think there's just been a lot of, just what you said, a lot going on in D.C. I mean, our waiver at the end of the day has to be approved by the Secretary of HHS. The Secretary of HHS left, Tom Price.
We don't have one of those.
We don't
right
have one.
Now,
so that's a holdup. As they were going through considering Graham Cassidy and considering various versions of healthcare reform, all of those slowed down work on waivers. So I think there's just a lot going on back there.
You're not scared that we won't get the waiver, though? You don't see that happening?
Right now, no.
Yeah. All right.
We're still on track, moving towards it.
What about CHIP and community health funding? You obviously, more than anyone, probably know the impact that has not only on kids, but on rural and low-income Arkansans. Is that funding, what do they do when they don't know where their funding's coming from?
Okay. On CHIP, for Arkansas, we're not in crisis. We have several months more to go on CHIP funding, so we're fine. And Washington does seem to be very focused, the Congress does seem to be focused on passing a new CHIP authorization. Mm-hmm. So at this stage, we're not worried that that's not going to happen before it's I think March, April next year before we start seeing any kind of problems. So
yep.
we have time on CHIP. We're not worried about that. It looks like they will get something done before the end of this year.
Community health?
That. Community health funding, we're working on those, the extension of those funds right now and the contracts. And that is going to be a very interesting process. The funding is there. It's how we're going to use that funding now with all the rest of the behavioral health transformation going on. I mean, that whole system is changing here in Arkansas with all the new rules we put in place, with all the new services that are available, and now with the provider-led entities coming, yeah. Right? They're going to have control over the most, those who have a higher need of services. So there's going to be a real rethinking of how do the community mental health centers fit in the new landscape here in Arkansas.
All right, 30 seconds left here. On November 1st, you guys institute a new Medicaid claims processing service.
Yes.
Are there going to be any hiccups, or is this smooth sailing?
I will never say smooth sailing. No one implements a major IT system without a little bit of rockiness, but our team has done a great job. This is a system that other states have done before us, and so we have, for the last several years, been in weekly contact with all those states as they went through what they did, their lessons learned, and we've learned from all that. And at this stage, really what you usually see that are two issues. One is claim inaccuracy, and we have done double what every other state has done to run those through and test them. The really other issue you run into is, do providers register with the new system? Because we can't pay their claims if they're not registered.
Yeah, well, they'll figure that out pretty quickly, I think.
They will, but that's going to be a big shift for us.
All right, Cindy Gillespie with the Department of Human Services. Thanks, as always. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Roby Brock. That's all for today's show. We'll see you next time.